Welcome back to MLive's Dungeon of Doom podcast. I'm Ben Raven. He's Kory Woods.
What's going on?
Man, it feels like we just recorded on Sunday. You know, this time of the season, it just blink of the eye, Sunday to Thursday. We're sitting here about to record another podcast.
Ever since daylight saving, I've just been thrown into a loop. I don't know what day it is anymore. The fact that it's Thursday right now, it's like, oh yeah, maybe I should start packing my bag.
Yeah, I know, right? I kind of had that thought last night. Like, I need to do some laundry. Crap, we're back on the road for 2 straight weeks.
I did laundry last night. I was actually drying clothes before I left the house this morning.
Yeah, the Lions are 5-3, stuck in the middle of a tight NFC North race. The NFC playoff picture is jam-packed right now. I mean, it's November 6th, so obviously it's going to be that way. Right now, the Lions hold the last spot in the NFC playoff picture. And it's big time. I mean, a lot of NFC matchups. It's Commanders, it's Eagles, it's Giants, and it's Packers. Bang, 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 bang. And every single one of those games means something, no matter who the opponent is. I know the Commanders are 3-6, starting Marcus Mariota this weekend, but it's kind of a similar situation to last weekend. You can bury another NFC team and put yourself in safer territory. And I think as we're seeing with the Packers, the Lions are going to need every frickin' win they can get to keep up.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I would say at worst over these next 4 games, at worst they would have to go 2-2.
Yeah, got to stay above 500.
But at best, at best it's 4-0. But
yeah,
I mean, at the worst, 2-2, and just where they are right now with being 5-3, 1-2 in the NFC North, I definitely do not think that dropping that Thanksgiving game is possible.
No, can't do it.
But before we get there, you got to go ahead and take care of business against this Commanders team, even though it's a different one. So I guess you can still consider it a revenge game.
Yeah, they're still finding a little motivation in it. Even Hutch said it yesterday. Goff even said it. Glasgow kind of was like, nah, whatever, but I guess. Perfect Graham Glasgow quote. But yeah, it's 5-3, man. Already lost more games than last season, which is crazy.
You know what? Here's the crazy thing about this. In a typical Lion season, 5-3 would be
celebrated.
Celebrated. But even the fact that you just blew my mind, like, wait a minute. Yeah. You can actually say they already have more losses than last season. That just really just shows you how far this organization has come and where the expectations are now.
Yeah. Didn't lose a game in the NFC North last year. It's a different world. We've got a mailbag podcast for you today, though. Got a lot of great questions. Thank you for using that dungeonofdoom at MLive.com email address. We got 4 voice memos this week. That's awesome. Got a bunch of questions across social media and the email address, and we're going to get into them. And go figure, a lot of trade deadline questions. The Lions did not make any moves at the trade deadline. First time since 2021 they didn't do so. Some are pissed off. Some are understanding. There doesn't seem to be any middle ground.
At first, I'm not going to lie. I was a bit shocked that they did not make any moves.
Yeah.
But then after I kind of settled, thought about some things, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're going to answer it, but I have a different takeaway now.
Yeah. I think, we'll get into that. I almost did the same thing, too. We'll just go into questions. We got... You know what? This is going to be our Doomer of the Week, too. First non-voice memo Doomer of the Week, but Craig Chadwick always bringing the questions. So we're turning to our Doomer of the Week. Craig Chadwick, submitted via Blue Sky. Craig wants to know, danger alert. There's a very vocal, that's a great start. There's a very vocal segment of the fan base that thinks this year is now over because the disastrous, quote unquote, on over and disastrous trade deadline that Brad failed, quote unquote, at and hung them out to dry. I guess adding 3 starters per draft plus important role players is no longer good enough. That's a great point. Must F them picks too. That's kind of what we talked about a couple weeks ago, where I was like, Brad don't want to part with a 4th or a 3rd or a 2nd or a 1st rounder because he's finding, whether they're stars or not immediately, he's finding guys who are starting and playing real snaps as rookies, whether it's offense, defense, or special teams, every single year. So, Dan said it the other day. The offers just weren't good enough. We weren't willing to part with what was out there, and we weren't, he just straight up said it wasn't good enough. It just kind of stayed in the intriguing bucket. And I think the draft picks and draft capital and Brad's ability to move around in the draft on draft weekend is going to take precedent over trading picks for rentals unless the price is absolutely right, like it was for Peoples-Jones, 6th round, like it was for Zadarius Smith, 5th rounder.
I agree with you. You know, here's where I'll land with it. I believe that if the Lions had 3rd round picks to spare, that they would have made a move.
They traded them all for Tesla.
They traded them all for Tesla. So if they had those, I think they could have made something happen.
Yeah.
But when you're talking, and hey, maybe some teams were not interested in a 4th or a 5th or whatever. But when you're talking about giving that 1st or 2nd, no, I don't land there. Like I saw something out there floating around, like giving up a 2nd rounder for an unnamed Browns offensive lineman.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you really want to give up draft capital for a guy that's going to be a starter for a 34-year-old lineman that is on an expiring deal?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you want to do that. I do think that, Dan said something interesting yesterday about they've had the conversation about the F them picks thing.
Yeah.
I think that after they go ahead and lock up these next round of guys, Branch, LaPorta, Gibbs, I'm forgetting the 4th one.
Campbell.
Yep. I think after they have that, okay, we got our nucleus locked in, then they might go all in with that approach. So I think that might be next year. But I mean, they probably didn't have what was needed to go get the offensive lineman they may have been targeting. And then on top of that, even though the Browns or the Titans, their seasons are not going anywhere, you still want to keep your quarterback upright.
For sure. No, especially with Cam Ward, too.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get it.
Yeah. No, and we got a couple Kevin Zeitler questions, too, just because he was an obvious name that we mentioned. And, I mean, your point's perfect. The Titans, they're not going anywhere this year, but they probably like their rookie quarterback to be able to develop and stay healthy. And Kevin Zeitler's a great, great, great interior pass blocker. So you need that. So I get it. They might have been asking a little too much, even if they considered anything at all. So, it's a good question there. Let's go to the voice memo. Raymond Nuznoff, last week's Doomer of the Week. He's back again with another voice memo.
Hello, Ben and Kory. This is Raymond Nuznoff. I think I speak for all Lions fans when I say the trade deadline was very lackluster. I'd like to think at some point in Brad Holmes' tenure as the GM of the Lions, he's going to make a move for a free agent, or he's going to swing a big trade to, quote, go for it all. And I think the trade in the draft for Tesla has already shown a shift in draft philosophy of not drafting long-term projects. So my question is, when do you predict Brad Holmes goes all in? Within the next couple of years or maybe a few years down the road? Or do you think he will never waver in his approach?
Man, that was a perfect segue.
Yeah.
It was like Raymond's an associate producer. For real. I told you guys, we don't listen to the voicemails beforehand. I love the surprise. I love hearing it fresh. It takes me back to the radio hosting days. But you said it perfectly. Lock in this nucleus, and I think that's when you can start being like, you know what? Maybe we can go higher than a 5th round pick in these deadline deals. Maybe we can go higher in these offseason deals. Raymond, a great point. They aggressively went up for Tesla. I said Tesla earlier because I've said his name so not as much recently, getting more involved in the offense. We said that on the postgame podcast. But I think once that nucleus is locked up, it's like, all right, we can start wheeling and dealing a little more.
Because at that point, I mean, it's like, and this is just me thinking surface level, after you get your nucleus locked in, those depth pieces, you might be able to find some guys in later rounds or in free agency to come in. But once you got those key starters, key role players locked into deals, okay, we can get a little bit crazier, get a little bit wild out there. Like, okay, you know what? This guy's disgruntled. Hey, let's go in and go throw a 1st or a 4th. I don't know. I think once you get those guys locked in, then Brad can get a little bit creative, because I do believe his approach right now, he wants to make sure that this thing is sustainable for long-term success instead of just going all in. Because right now, I know a lot of people like to go with the Howie Roseman and what he's doing. This is not the same situation. They're trying to turn over a franchise that has not won anything and make football culture here consistent, not just a couple of high years and a drop.
Yeah, exactly. Josh Brink had another question just asking, like, is the reason they didn't make any big moves at the deadline is because they have all these extensions to make down the line? I think that plays into it, but I also think it's flexibility because they don't have those third rounders in this year's draft. Brad makes most of his moves on draft weekend. I mean, we've seen that. We've lived that for, 5 years now? 4 years now? 5 seasons? I know, it is wild, but good questions there, too. Just wanted to give Josh a shout-out. Here we go. Suboptimal prime on Blue Sky. Of all the trades that were made and the compensation given, which one, if any, do you wish the Lions would have made? My pick, I had a tough time. I'm between Jalen Phillips for a third-round pick, just because that was the guy I was like, you know what? I didn't think it. I actually called it. I said it would be a third-round pick. I was like, that's going to be a third-round pick. It's a former first-rounder. He's got a lot of talent, a lot of injury concerns, so it won't push higher than the third. I would have made that. And pass rush wasn't even my biggest concern, but like that's a guy that would have given them some versatility. It would have given them a speed rusher. It would have given them some toys to play around with. And the other one, just because it was an offensive lineman, Trevor Penning, former first-round pick flyer, Saints organization that Dan knows well. The Chargers got him for a 6th-round pick in 2027. I know he's been bad. He's been hurt. But, I don't know. Anything for the offensive line would have made me feel a little better. But those are the two that came to mind for me.
Yeah, I like the idea of the Trevor Penning one, just off the simple fact that familiarity with Dan, you're not really giving up a high pick for him, and it might just be a change of location that might do good for him. Yeah. And with the program that they run here, they pull the best out of players as much as possible. So I think the change of scenery being relocated here might have done some good for him.
Yeah, the only reason I mentioned him is because it's like it was so cheap. It's a former first-round pick flyer. Take a chance, see if you can get something out of him. I mean, coming from the Saints organization, I mean, I know it's changed since Stan's been there, but I'm sure there's still some similar stuff there too. But yeah, those are the ones that come to mind for us. Let's get into another voice memo sent to the dungeonofdoom at MLive.com email address. There was no name on this one, so we're about to find out who this was.
Hey guys, Patrick Shea here, up in the Sioux. I love the show. I've listened to every episode very, very closely. And I remember you guys talking a bit during the preseason about how John Morton would be calling plays from the booth, like he has been. He likes the aerial view of the field and prefers it to the chaos of the sideline, as he's put it. Well, now I'm wondering if that might have an impact on how disjointed this offense has looked at times. I think back to the moments leading up to the 2-minute warning last Sunday. There seemed to be confusion, and Goff kept looking over to the sideline again and again, and they just let the clock run out. Ben Johnson was always right on the sideline in that chaos, very animated. Is something lost when the play caller himself isn't right there? Thanks for the question, and don't let anyone tell you we're all Packers fans up here. Thanks, guys.
It's a great question.
So
thank you, Patrick, from the Sioux.
It's interesting, and I'm gonna get to it as quickly as possible. Had a conversation with my cousin, shout out Bruce, and I said I was going to ask this.
Yeah.
Because I do, as granted, the reason that John Morton said that he's in the booth is because he's preferred calling. There's always been there, gives him a higher vantage point to be able to see the differences in the coverage and everything like that. Having said that, when I was talking to my cousin, I said, I wonder if there is something to that disconnection and those communication issues because I'm pretty sure John Morton comes down during halftime and whatnot. They go over things. He's still able to phone down. But with Ben on the sidelines, if something was wrong, that's direct holding you responsible. Yeah. Direct communication in real time and being able to really be in guys' faces throughout the whole time and figure stuff out. So I do think that, I do wonder, could that be a part of the breakdown? They're used to a certain way of things going, and now it doesn't look as clean.
And now, I mean, we've heard about communication problems in week 1. We've heard about communication problems in 2 of their 3 losses. Ever. I know, and I didn't put a lot of weight into those talks when Morton first said he would talk in the booth because it's like, all right, he's been doing that for 26 years. He's more comfortable up there. But I do think maybe he's just looking at the position just from a play calling perspective. I've been in the booth for 26 years. That's my home. That's where I'm comfortable. I can see everything. He's got David Shaw on the field as like his point person with the quarterback and Morton that's communicating him. But if we're talking about communication issues, if we're talking about the offense struggling the way it has this year, maybe you're missing that in the moment emotional feel and connection. It's play calling is important. It's like the main challenge of that job, especially on game days. But like, I don't know, when you're on the field, yeah, you're not seeing it as well. And maybe he needs to see it well as a first-year offensive coordinator. I mean, I know he had the year with the Jets in 2017, but like first year here as offensive coordinator, I do think maybe if we hear about communication issues again, or if we hear about confusion again, or if this offense continues to look this way, I mean, he needs to get down on the field.
I mean, yeah,
you need to feel it.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the defense.
Yeah.
When things are breaking down or things don't look right, you have Shep right there in their faces, and they're making adjustments and talking and switching things out in real time. And I do think that there is that disconnect, especially when you are, you can say because he's a first-time coordinator, he can be up in that box, but maybe even more now he's a first-time coordinator here, he needs to be right there to make sure that message is getting figured out in real time.
Yeah, personal opinion, I would rather have a line of communication from someone up in the sky saying they see something rather than needing an extra line of communication to say, this guy says this guy says this, Jared sees this, what do you think? Because great stuff from Patrick on the 2-minute warning stuff. I think we were all a little, I know we talked about that in the post game, but it was like, what the hell?
I was just,
you're in tempo.
I'm looking and I'm like,
so
what's going on?
I think, if these problems persist, if we hear the word communication, if we hear the phrase communication lapses one more time, it's like, all right, man, I think you need to swap, get on the field, get a feel, see how it goes. I don't know, man. I know it's all about personal feel. I know play calling's important, but like that job's more than just play calling.
I just think personally, the passing game coordinator should probably be in the booth in this instance.
Swap Shaw and Morton. Yeah. I like it. These are good questions. That's a great question from Patrick. I like because it is kind of like, all right, man, something's not clicking.
Yeah.
And maybe you need to swap the potential for communication lapses. I don't know if there's communication lapses happen with Morton, but I do buy into the thinking like maybe you need to hear it from Jared. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. It's a new deal. We're figuring it out. Capri Edwards, DOD email. Hey guys, regular listener. Here's my question. Did letting Tim Patrick go seem premature now? Whether it was Josh Reynolds or Tim Patrick, we always had a reliable outside receiver that was able to win on the outside when defenses focus on St. Brown and JMO. Tesla may be great down the road, but right now we're getting nothing from him on offense. Just an observation. We'll love to hear your thoughts, guys. Hey, we talked about Tesla after the game. Get him out there more.
Yeah, I don't think they're getting – I would say this. I don't think they're getting rid of Tim Patrick was premature.
Yeah.
But I do think there is a concern about the lack of usage of Tesla.
Exactly. You got rid of Tim Patrick and replaced those reps with Khalif Raymond.
Yeah.
I love Khalif Raymond. Great player, great culture fit, great playmaker, but like his usage as a wide receiver this year is basically motion decoy. I don't think I've seen Jared look at him more than 3 times.
and just with the type of athlete that Tesla is, how quick he is, hands,
the size,
size, able to go get the 50-50 ball. I do not understand not utilizing him more. How is he going to grow on the sidelines?
Yeah, I know. I know they were like, all right, maybe this kid needs a year or two before he's an impact player, but like he has shown glimpses of it in regular season games. Like the very few chances he's had, he's made spectacular plays. So I just think you got a big, strong, fast, work hard, bought in receiver that you traded serious draft capital for and traded away a vet that you trust.
And that's the other part of it. You traded away a vet that you trust, serious draft capital that you could have used to improve yourself at the deadline. And this guy is, a spectator, basically.
Yeah. And I will say this about Tim Patrick. It was not his best training camp.
Yeah.
It was not, and he has not done much in Jacksonville, so maybe there was something there too. But losing that Patrick, losing that Reynolds type, and then having a guy that seems tailor-made for that role and not using him is kind of like, all right, we're talking about this offense being stuck in a funk. How about you make the freaking trick shot wide receiver get out there and give him a couple chances? I mean, it would just be another vertical presence that you have to account for. Because even if he's a 3rd-round rookie with 2 or 3 catches and 2 touchdowns, like every time he's had a chance, he's made a play, it seems like. So, yeah. I hope that answered the question there. Let's go back. I believe this is Nathan Simons here with a voice memo.
What's up, Ben and Kory? Been a long time listener since the Kyle days. Fun fact, he actually saved my cat back before the Lions were any good at all back during the dark days of Matt Patricia. So always a huge listener and big fan. Um, I'm just curious, what do you guys think the key is to getting this run game fixed and going? I think that is the number one issue on offense as far as we're just not able to get any kind of first and second down decent runs even, which puts us behind the sticks, which puts us in third and long, which then we just suck on third and long. And it feels like that's the catalyst to why this offense has been pretty bad. I know that they're still like what a top 5 offense, but as far as the way it looks, it doesn't look good. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a lot of things going into the rushing attack. The Lions are facing among the most, I forget where they ranked, but they're facing, I just looked this stat up because we also had a question from Matt McManus on Twitter about stacked box. The Lions are facing 47% stacked boxes, which means the defenses are loading it up. They're also not passing well against it either. It's interesting. Gibbs is having a weird year. He's only rushed for 70 yards 3 times this year and only once since week 5. He's averaging 68 yards a game. That's down from last year. Good chance this weekend. The Commanders have given up 200-yard running back games this year, given up 22nd most rushing yards per game. But it comes down to the offensive line for me, the interior offensive line.
Yeah, that's where I land. It all starts there. The reason that Gibbs and Montgomery were so dynamic is because they had a really stout offensive line to run behind, and this year they have just not been performing up to par. And I believe that has been, that maybe that also has an effect on the way that the pass game is going as well. But I also do think that sometimes there is an over reliance on Gibbs and not mixing him and Monty in enough, because I think that is one thing that Ben Johnson did well. He would kind of mix them both in sometimes on the same drive. Yeah. Whereas it's like, okay, they're kind of like, look like they're, at least last game, like they were just alternating drives as opposed to a true mixing things up and kind of confusing defenses. So that's where I land with it.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously Gibbs had a massive game. Montgomery had a massive game. They're in the middle of the pack with 4.4 yards per carry. I think that would be the worst of Dan Campbell's tenure here. It's been weird. It's one of those things where I'm like, dang, Gibbs is so good. He obviously broke the big one against the Bucs, but he's been pretty bottled up this year outside of 2 big runs, maybe 3 big runs. And Montgomery's been hit or miss, but I don't blame Montgomery for that because kind of like you said, it's kind of gone from a 1A, 1B to a 1-2.
Yeah.
And I do think a little more Montgomery could help Gibbs. I do think a little picking your spots with Gibbs could help Montgomery, but it really does. I mean, I've thought about it all week. Like, what is going on with this offense? Why can't they run the ball? Where are the explosive pass plays gone? What happened on third down? And it really is. I think it is the offensive line. It really is. one guy misses an assignment, one guy doesn't get the call right, and all of a sudden you're 2nd and 9 or 2nd and 11, and either gonna run twice to set up a good 4th down, or you're passing trying to move the sticks, and it's just been a really bad proposition this year. It's strange just because there's so much talent and there's so much trust in that unit. I mean, last week's game against the Vikings might have been the worst of Gibbs and Montgomery's tenure in Detroit. I mean, Gibbs gets destroyed in pass protection, 3 sacks allowed, 7 pressures. We can sit here and put that on him all we want, but like anytime you're banking on him to save the day, that's a bad plan. And that's on the interior offensive line too, because Minnesota was using those cross dog blitzes like crazy, just attacking, trying to confuse the interior offensive line. And it really just comes down to the interior offensive line finding their footing. Obviously that's going to be challenged even more with Mahogany out until at least late December. Miles Frazier was back at practice this week. We'll see how he plays into that. This actually bleeds well into a question. Where did it go? Mike Martini, how realistic do you think it is that they move Graham Glasgow back to left guard and insert Cologne or Kingsley at center? I don't know. I think they're going to ride it out this weekend with Coyote Awashika at left guard for Mahogany, see how that goes. But Dan has really made it sound possible.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of leaning with. I'm thinking that it's depending on how today and tomorrow go. I think that there's a window for it to happen.
Yeah,
just because of the simple fact that Dan addressed it, and I don't ever see him giving us coach speak unless it's something that is really potentially on the table. Because just right now, just like you said, it has not looked good. Not just one game; it hasn't looked good all season.
Yeah, and they're trying to see if just a different combination could spark things. Like I said, I think it'll be Graham at center this weekend. I think it'll be Awashika at left guard, but they are really talking about Cologne. They really like Miles Frazier's versatility between tackle and guard. If he can have a mahogany-esque acclimation period these next 3 weeks, you can't rule him out either. But yeah, 20% Graham Glasgow moves to guard, 80% he stays. I don't know. I think it is. I think Dan's being honest that he's thinking about it. I think he's literally just laying out his thoughts on the table. He's like, I'm going to get asked a buttload of offensive line questions this week. Here's my thoughts, guys. Graham Glasgow, it was news to him in the locker room when we asked him about it yesterday. So, and Cologne said he played his normal amount of center snaps. So I think it'll be something that they carry into this weekend. And depending how this weekend goes, we'll see how real that goes.
I would say 70-30. Graham goes at center, 30% window, 30% chance it doesn't.
Yeah. We've got a duo of John Morton questions sent to the Dungeon of Doom email address from Finn Miller and Nathan Cooley, or Nathan Coley. Tell me how to say your name right. Finn, do you think Morton... I'm just going to combine these two. Finn, do you think Morton will be able to right the ship before the offseason? If you can't, do you have any thoughts on how the Lions will solve their offensive play calling issue this season as well as next season? And then from Cooley, do you think fans' criticism of John Morton is fair? My thoughts are that it is more than fair. He was given a great amount of talent, and his failure to utilize that talent is a huge red flag to me. I would appreciate your thoughts. I'm going to let you go, Mr. Ferrari.
I think it's fair.
Yeah.
Because
I do too.
When you have seen how explosive this offense has been over the past couple of years, and then you add another weapon in somebody like Tesla, you have another year of this group being together, you're expecting, okay, this should be business as usual. John, you've been around the league so many years. You should just be able to come in and really just kind of take over and kind of maybe it doesn't look as explosive as Ben Johnson, but at least you're scoring points and you're looking like a competent offense. And right now, just the fact that, the third downs don't look great. You can't really move the ball up the field. And the only time you're really looking like a well-oiled machine is when the defense gives you a short field. Yeah, this is fair criticism because what are you going to do when you go against the Philadelphia Eagles, the Green Bay Packers again, a Cowboys team that's loaded up, or the Rams?
Yeah,
I mean you have
Seahawks.
Yeah, Seahawks. You have teams that if you don't figure this offense out, you could get run out the building. I mean, we're talking about a team that came into the season as a Super Bowl favorite, and as you just pointed out, now they're looking like a wild card team on the road. So it is a concern. It is fair.
The offense stuff is weird. It's really weird. They're like at the bottom of the league in third down offense, but this is the second highest scoring offense in the league. Obviously, that's a weird stat because they went up from third to second last week. So, I mean, I think some things have worked. It really does come back to the interior offensive line for me because I think that's hampered some of the things that they want to do. We're seeing less play action. Go figure. Because Jared doesn't have an extra second and a half to fake a handoff and then spin around and fake the run. I forget who said it to me, but it's a point that stuck with me really hard all week. John Morton is calling this offense like he still has an all-pro generational center. And I agree with that about 80%. But then when I look at the lack of play action or the decreased use of play action, and we know how good Goff is with play action, I think that's
his bread and butter.
I think that slight drop off is due to the interior offensive line. So you're seeing some things there. I'll say this. I think I'm more patient than most people. I always have been. I'm not pressing the hot seat button on Morton yet. I think the interior offensive line has hampered him a little bit. I think it's been a weird season so far. It's been weird. Like that's the only word I think of when I get these running questions. Like, this is weird. I don't understand why this isn't working either. Sewell's performing like an all-pro once again. It's like Rallage is looking like a dude at times. It's an up and down rookie season, but I just, if we're still talking about these problems at the end of January, there's got to be some tough discussions. I'm not saying let him go, or I'm saying maybe Dan, like you alluded to on the postgame pod, he's an offensive coach. He's in those rooms, but maybe more ownership in play calling.
I would say this.
I'm talking after the season. Yeah. That's me.
In season, I would say this. I think that the only way the seat would get, I'm not saying hot, I'll say it'll get warm, is if at any point this season the Lions find themselves at 500.
Yeah.
And then you're still talking about the communication issues. That is when I could see, like, okay, we're not progressing, we're regressing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at. But I do think that after this season, if the offense has not kind of like turned that corner to looking better,
yeah,
to your point,
yeah,
in just seeing what the landscape of the carousel is going to be, you may have to have some uncomfortable conversations. Not necessarily saying let anybody go, but just like everything has to be on the table.
And if I hear communication issues one more time, Dan needs to have that talk with John. Like, hey, let's get David up in the booth. Let's get you on the sideline. Let's just see how it goes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll do one more written question, one more voice memo. Then we're going to talk to John Morton.
Yeah.
Michael Meyer, as people who have covered a team as it moved from a wreck to a solid organization, what's your advice for distinguishing between systemic and tactical failures right now? How do we tell the difference between the offense having a bad day and being I cannot say that word. That's my speech impediment coming back to get me. I can never say irrevocably broken. Whoops. There's my former speech language pathologist calling me. Good question. I think right now, I don't think it's broken. I think second highest scoring offense still passes the ball well. I think they're struggling on third down because they're having tactical issues on first and second down. The interior offensive line is struggling. The run game, I'd like to see a little more creativity in the run game. I'd like to see a little more. People are talking about screen passes left and right like crazy. Yeah, we saw a lot of them. I'd like to see a little more creativity in those screen passes. Just throwing the JMO behind the sticks. That's not a good thing. I think it was just a bad day, tactical failures, bad day against the Vikings because, like Dan said, every team in the NFL uses cross-dog blitzes. Cross-dog blitzes, nose tackle goes one way, the mic shoots up, and the will comes off his hip. They're trying to confuse teams. I think the weakness for, like, all the questions we didn't get to this week, the answer is the banged-up, new-look interior offensive line. For like all those questions, like that's I put like 80% of the offensive struggles on the interior offensive line.
Same. I don't think that the offense is broken.
Yeah.
But I do think that Morton has to be a little bit more aggressive than what he is within what he can do, because last week he said over the past couple of weeks he's been alluding to the taking what the defense is giving them. I mean, you guys have an offense that can pretty much dictate what the defenses do. So maybe within that, figure out a game plan to, exploit.
Yeah.
To exploit it better. I mean, you utilize the talents that you have more, because, I mean, nobody's going to fault you for getting the ball to St. Brown or Laporta. Those are, players that have earned all pro nods, but when you still have a guy like Jamison Williams, an Isaac Tesla that's underused, David Montgomery who's being underused, like, you still have pieces that could really kind of fix a lot of what's going on. You just got to figure out how to use them better. I don't have the answer to that, but it's just like
they're not broken.
They're not broken. They just have to be used better.
If this is broken, that's a good problem. But it's not to the levels that fans expect. It's not to the levels it should be. I mean, hey, pass a little more on first down. Work a little more money into the rotation. Continue to find looks for JMO. Get Tesla more looks.
Get him a look.
There's no explosion right now. Find ways to get explosion. Find ways, dip into that creative bag. We haven't seen that in a couple of weeks. There's little things. They're not broken. They're just having a bad time right now. They're caught in a funk right now. They've got some clear issues right now that they got to figure out, but they're not broken. One last voice memo from Ray here, and then we will get out of here. I think Ray's a first-time voice memo. Thanks, Ray. dungeonofdoom at MLive.com. Just send a voice memo or question there. We'll take care of it.
Hi, this is Raymond Van Velsen from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Shout out.
Long question. How would Ben Johnson have done with the Lions offense the last 4 games? Goff has been sacked 14 times, and aside from Gibbs' 87-yard run against Tampa, the running game is averaging less than 3.7 yards per carry. To use Cody's analogy, talent-wise, the Lions have a Ferrari, but they had to put in a bunch of new transmission parts this year, i.e. the offensive line. If those parts aren't working well yet, that Ferrari still isn't going to go very fast, and it doesn't matter who your driver is. That driver's not going to perform well in a race. To put it another way, if we try to fix Johnny Morton, but he isn't the problem, how much further are the Lions going to set themselves back? Thanks for taking our questions. Look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Thank you, Ray. Great way to use your analogy, because I do think, you just heard me. I do think it's the interior offensive line. I think it's hurting them on first and second down, and the play action's gone down a little, and you're seeing the struggles in the run game outside of a couple big runs there. The Lions don't want to be in a position where they're cycling through offensive coordinators on their quest to replace Ben Johnson. No, that's why I think I take a patient approach. There's a reason. I have a very rock solid trust in Dan Campbell's feel for coaching personnel, where he puts those coaches. I have no doubt that if he thinks they can do better, they will do better. But I think there is internal trust in Morton, and that's why you hear me say the words patient. I know it sucks right now. You guys should be frustrated right now. This offense should be more consistent. The running game should be performing better. They shouldn't be 1 of 23 on 3rd and long. I know 3rd and long's hella hard, but when you got St. Brown, Jamal, Laporta, Gibbs, Montgomery, Decker, Sewell, Jared Goff, you should have a little more success. And you should also not be in 3rd and long that many times. I think that's the main thing. Yes, the 3rd and long stats suck, but you should not be in that situation that much with these pieces, with that offense. So I think it is the transmission right now. I don't think we know who John Morton is as an offensive coordinator yet. I think we will find out a lot this month with 4 games coming down the barrel in 3 weeks, bang, 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 and how they respond to this adversity. And then I'll be better able to answer that question. But right now I think it's the transmission, and I think that they're going to exercise some serious patience with him. And that's why you hear us talking. Maybe get down on the sideline, try it out. Just try little things, but I do think once they find their footing, and if they find their footing on the offensive line, you will see this offense improve, because it's all about the offensive line here, and it opens up everything they do. Jared Goff is not a game-breaking mobile quarterback. He needs time. When you've got him going off script or spinning around for his life, you're going to have a bad day. When the rushing attacks can hit in the backfield, you're going to have a bad day. So it really does. It really does. I know everybody wants to blame the play caller. It hasn't been great. It hasn't been perfect. It's been a drop-off from Ben Johnson, but it all starts with the offensive line for me, especially with this team.
Yeah, I'm not at the front of the John Morton.
No, you're not.
Train.
You're not.
It's more so like
holding him accountable.
Yeah, just like, hey, something's got to get switched here. And again, maybe you got to mix some things up with that offensive line to kind of get the better protection, so that your play calls that you're sitting down look a lot better with the better, more crisp offensive line. Maybe you do, like I said, we talked about. Maybe you got to come down on the sidelines until that communication gets worked out and figured out, and you're right there in real time able to make those adjustments. They're not hearing it from the second hand; they're hearing directly from you. There's a couple of things that you have to switch up, not necessarily change your whole entire philosophy, but right now, just in the now, try to fix a few things. So
yeah, definitely. All right, predictions, Kory.
No Jaden Daniels. No, keep saying his name wrong.
Luvu, he's back.
He's back. Okay, Louisville's back. Never mind then. But no Marshawn Lattimore. I'm going to go. I think it's going to be closer than what people think. I'm going to go Lions 24, Commanders 14.
Okay, I'm sticking with the Lions too. They're the king of the bounce backs. The Commanders are banged up. Give me Lions 27-14. You know, I think not a blowout, but they control it. I think they get the run game going. The Commanders are a little weak against the run. Hey, it's Awashika. Sounds like it's going to be Awashika's time to shine at left guard. He's been here for a long time. He's going to get a chance. We'll see how it looks. Got some big problems to answer there. Thank you guys for all the questions this week. Dungeon of Doom at MLive.com. I'm Ben Raven. He's Kory Woods. We are your MLive Dungeon of Doom podcast.